What's happening, everybody? It is Brent Axe, and we are live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page. Woo! Cardiac Cuse, baby, once again, as Syracuse has to hold off a furious rally by Virginia Tech, but the rally held off. Free throws matter, as we will discuss. Elijah Hughes comes through in the second half. Buddy Boeheim with a huge first half for the Orange, and Syracuse gets a big road win in ACC play. Virginia's been very friendly to the Orange on the road this year. They beat the Cavaliers to start this three-game winning streak they've been on, and they get a 71-69 win over Virginia Tech today. So Syracuse splits the season series with the Hokies. It was just 11 days ago that Syracuse and Virginia Tech met at the Carrier Dome, and this time it was the opposite of what we saw in that game. We're here thanks to Krause Health. Great to have you guys here. Hope you're having a terrific Saturday afternoon. You guys get in the comments, do your thing. We will chat along. I'll respond to your comments as we go here. As mentioned in that first matchup, Syracuse had a 9-point lead in the second half, and when it really mattered. And Virginia Tech just shut things down and really put the clamps on Syracuse in the second half and ended up with a 4-point win in the Carrier Dome. Today, Syracuse at one point had a 16-point lead, had, a 10-point lead as late as like 9 or 8 minutes to go in this game. And this is amazing. If I had told you that one team came out and dominated in the paint and the other team was shooting threes, you're going to guess that Syracuse was the team shooting threes, right? Because that's what they've done all year. They live and die by the three. That was not the case today. Syracuse really showing that, and when you have a size advantage, you've got to take advantage of it itself. Syracuse dominates in the paint, and that's what this game became about. It became about Syracuse scoring inside, Virginia Tech moving the ball, shooting threes, cutting into the Syracuse lead, just chipping away, but Syracuse scoring enough. It's what they didn't do in the first game, scoring down the stretch just to build on their lead, massage their lead a little bit. That's what they did today. Elijah Hughes was huge in the second half for the Orange. Buddy Boeheim was NBA Jam on fire in the first half. He couldn't miss. Virginia Tech not guarding him well. He ends up, let's look at some numbers here as we dig in on this game. But there is no number bigger than Syracuse outscoring Virginia Tech in the paint, 34-12. So uncharacteristic of this team, but so needed in this game because Syracuse has got to show that they can do this, particularly on the road, that they can be a balanced offensive team. Buddy Boeheim with some great plays in the paint. He showed that in Wednesday's game against Boston College. Does it again in this game. We mentioned Elijah Hughes, a couple of tough dribble drives in the paint, and he had struggled in the first half. He was 1 for 8 at halftime. He was 0 for 5 from three-point range. Had a big three-pointer from the top of the key in the second half. A couple of big drives inside as well. A three-point play. Syracuse clamped down on defense. Cone, who killed Syracuse in the first game, the littlest guy on the court running around there shooting threes. He had 14 points in the first half. Did not score in the second half. So the big stat, as we mentioned, Syracuse outscores Virginia Tech in the paint 34-12. They get 13 points off turnovers, which was big. Rebounds were huge for the Orange as well. They hold off Virginia Tech in that category 35-33. They out-rebounded Virginia Tech in the first game by 1 and lost. Today, those possessions mattered. Those rebounds were big. And Syracuse ends up shooting 29 of 60. That's 48%. Virginia Tech was right there with them at 42%. Three-point range, Syracuse just didn't have it today. They're 6 of 24. 5 of those 6 threes were from Buddy Boeheim, with Elijah Hughes getting the other. Virginia Tech was hitting their threes today, really moving the ball well, putting a big scare into Syracuse by going 15 of 37. That's 40% from three-point range. It was tense down the stretch, and Virginia Tech had a possession. Syracuse is up 70-67. Beatty drives in for Virginia Tech, scores, gets fouled, questionable foul, honestly, but he missed the free throw. I mean, kids, this is why I say free throws matter. It was huge in that spot for Syracuse to miss that. And then the play inbounds. So Syracuse goes down, and Elijah Hughes gets a shot out of a timeout. Wasn't a really good possession for Syracuse, frankly. And Virginia Tech gets another chance. And I don't know what kind of play they called coming out of the timeout. Neither Syracuse or Virginia Tech did a good job running plays out of timeouts down the stretch. Nolly, Virginia Tech's best player. It was held in check for the season he's having twice against Syracuse this year, by the way. Just jacks up like a deep three with too much time on the clock, and you're kind of saying, boy, that was a pretty bad possession there by Virginia Tech. So a big miss there, the free throw miss by Beatty, and Syracuse survives. You can't spell survives without Syracuse in this case, without SU, as they say, right? So looking at some individual stats in this one, we mentioned Buddy's big first half. He ends up with 26 points on the day. He's 5 of 13 from three-point range. There was a stretch there where Buddy scored 15 straight points. After Syracuse was down early and it was struggling on the offensive end, Elijah Hughes ends up with 17 points on the day. Marek Dolzaj with 11 points and 11 rebounds. I mean, every game, this guy is hitting the boards, making plays. Didn't have quite the assist numbers that he usually does, just 2 on the day, but a lot of big rebounds in a game where Syracuse out-rebounded Virginia Tech. He led the Orange there. Quincy Guerrier, I think, gave Syracuse some good minutes off the bench with 5 points and 9 rebounds. 8 of those 9 came in the first half. The problem with Quincy is he continues to get into foul trouble quickly, ended up with 3 quick fouls and had to sit on the bench. Barama Sidibe got the wrath of Boeheim in the first half for some defensive miscues. He ends up with 4 points and 5 rebounds on the day, plays just 16 minutes. Howard Washington. Now, there was a stretch in that second half where Howard Washington should have been in earlier for Joe Girard, who Joe just didn't have his typical day, plays 24 minutes, 6 points on the day, didn't hit a three-pointer, didn't really do much else out there. He struggled a little bit running the point. Howard Washington just came in that first half, and you don't mess with the flow. And Buddy was hitting shots, and Howard was finding him. Howard had a couple of nice plays on the offensive end as well. You don't mess with that. And then there was a stretch in the second half where maybe he should have been in more for Joe, but the minutes were more evenly distributed today at the point guard position, with Girard getting 24 and Howard Washington getting 16. So that's the story stat-wise for Syracuse. This is a team that is showing some grit and some toughness. And this is a team, it's kind of like Al Pacino, the only good scene from Godfather 3, right? Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in. This is a Syracuse team that didn't get a win of significance in non-conference play, had a huge uphill battle here in the ACC. And by the way, they still do, but they're passing the test early on here. They're now 11-7. They're 4-3 in conference play, and there is a log jam there. We'll see how the rest of the day plays out in the ACC. There is a log jam of teams that came into today at 3-3. And Syracuse, at least right now, and there's a month and change to go here in ACC play. There's still a lot Syracuse has to do, but they're starting to separate themselves a little bit from that pack. They've won 3 out of their 4 ACC games on the road this season. Georgia Tech was one in a game where they scored 97 points and played as well as they have all year, probably their best overall game. When they beat Georgia Tech, what was that, 97-63, I think the final score was. And they beat Virginia and Virginia Tech on the road. So you want both of those games to hold up as quad 1 wins. So root for those teams the rest of the year. They're done with Virginia. They're done with Virginia Tech. They split with both of those teams. You want those games to end up as quad 1 wins at the end of the road here. So root for the Hokies and root for the Cavs the rest of the way if you're a Syracuse fan, so you get some quality wins. And the month of February is going to be tough with Duke to start things off. Louisville's in that month. Florida State's in that month. Syracuse gets another revenge game coming up. You remember that first game with Notre Dame, the back and forth, high scoring, one of the more entertaining games of the year, frankly, but an 88-87 loss for the Orange. We'll see if they can get revenge Wednesday night in South Bend. All right, let's see what you guys are saying here in the comments. Appreciate you coming by here on this Saturday afternoon. A lot of you saying great win, great clutch play for Syracuse. Mickey saying this team knows their roles and they're a team playing better defense, team ball. Could see them getting to 20 wins. And usually 20 wins is the magic mark, and 20 wins is good enough. It depends on what those wins are. That's the thing. That's just the big thing. How many of those are big wins, high quad 1, quad 2 wins? The committee's going to look very closely at that. And for Syracuse, it's crucial because they don't have a non-conference win of significance. But that's why it's a 4-month run. It's a journey. And Syracuse is passing a lot of tests here. They're toughening up. They're learning how to play in the clutch. They really have to held off Virginia Tech here, but that's this league. You play teams on the road like this, they're going to come back and use – particularly Virginia Tech. It's a small gym. It was sold out today. It's a confident team. They're really good at moving the ball in the perimeter. They were feeling it on the three-point range. I can't get over that one stat where Syracuse is the team that dominates in the paint. I mean, if they're going to add that to their arsenal and add a little balance to the mix here, that is only a good thing for Syracuse. If Guerrier can contribute and stay out of foul trouble and they can add the inside-out game here, that is crucial for this team because we know they can shoot threes. We know they're an outside shooting team and have, 4 guys that can do it. RJ notes that Howard seems to have a positive impact defensively, and that's a great point, RJ, because that's what's always going to earn you the brownie points in Jim Boeheim's world, is how you play defensively. But Howard paced the team well. He calmed them down. You go back to the first half, there was a stretch where Syracuse was struggling on the offensive end. Virginia Tech was showing some signs that they could pull away because they're confident in 3. Cone was killing them again. Syracuse wasn't matching what they were doing offensively, and then Buddy goes off. And look, what more can you say about Buddy Boeheim? The last 8 games, he has been on an absolute tear with the exception of the first half and change in the Virginia game when he was awful. It was awful. But other than that, this guy's been averaging 22 points. He leads the ACC in three-pointers made. He's challenging and probably will get, at this pace, the single-season three-point mark held by Jerry McNamara. And look, Buddy is getting better on defense. We've seen the paint in the last 2 games, the willingness and the ability to dribble drive, get in the paint, hit those jumpers inside. Look, you're 6'6". When you're a 6'6" shooting guard, you got to challenge people. We know you can shoot the 3. He did it today. There were shots of him running up the court, and the Yes Network did a great job kind of capturing it, and the lip readers in the world could see what he was saying. I can't repeat some of it, but there were a couple times up the floor he was feeling it, saying, these guys can't guard me, and they couldn't. A lot of people were in the camp of he's just playing because he's the coach's son. I mean, that's malarkey at this point. He's playing because he's a good player, and he can shoot the 3, and he's improving in other areas. So what a run. What a run by Buddy Boeheim. Props to him for how he's kind of worked through it. My good friend Matthew Gutierrez did a great article on The Athletic, if you want to check it out, about Buddy's ability, how he's worked on his 3, perfecting his 3, and the work that he's putting into that shot. And we are seeing the fruits of that labor right now for sure. Anthony noting here in the confidence, saying Buddy shooting with confidence. Mary Ellen said an exciting game, hung in there for the win. Buddy was awesome. A lot of you complimenting Buddy. Brian asking, what did I think of Quincy and Howard taking a 3 when our lead was dwindling? I didn't like it. There's still some questionable decisions offensively for this team. Quincy's got to learn to stop fouling people so quickly, but he was great on the boards. He gave Syracuse something they needed today. I mean, to play, let's look at his minutes again here. Let me just pull it up while we're talking about it here. So for Quincy to play 24 minutes and had those minutes limited because of foul trouble, he came in early because Barama Sidibe just struggling on the defensive end, plays 24 minutes, gets 9 rebounds. And if he could avoid foul trouble, he would have had more. But he was the second leading rebounder on the team. And that's what Quincy can do. He had a great play in this game where he faked at the three-point line, drove in, scored off the glass, got the foul. That's what Quincy can do. He did it against Boston College, too. He's just got to learn on defense to really pick his spots and stop reaching in and stop getting those fouls. And they're all legit fouls, too. He's not getting, cheapied by the refs, as freshmen sometimes can kind of fall into that trap a little bit. Let's see. Torrance saying that Syracuse is starting to find their game. They are. They know what their roles are, but they're expanding them too. That's the big thing. Elijah had to go inside more today because Virginia Tech harassed him at the three-point line. Had to fight inside. I mentioned the dribble drive that he had, the drive where he kind of kissed it off the glass, off the rim, and in, three-point plays. He had to gut it out because Virginia Tech was all over him, and that's what teams are going to do. But now, as they're knowing their roles, getting more confident and getting better, you got a choice to make. If you're a team playing Syracuse and you want to double Elijah Hughes, that's understandable because he's one of the best players in the league. But now Buddy Boeheim's in that category. You have to make a choice on who you focus on defensively, because if you double Elijah, Buddy's going to kill you. If you double Buddy, then you don't want to leave him open and give him the opportunity. So you really got to pick your spots now, and then there's going to be games where Gerard's feeling it and hitting threes too. And look, all of a sudden, this is a Syracuse team that looks a lot more confident together, but I like that comment that you made that they know exactly what kind of team they are now. They're coming into their own, and there's nothing that builds confidence more than winning on the road. Still got, to use the term, a tough road ahead and a lot of big wins that they have to get. And a lot of those are on the road, by the way. Louisville on the road, Florida State. Beating Duke at the Dome would obviously be huge again for this team. They've proven in recent years that they can hang with Duke. They can play with that team, but there's still a ways to go. There are a lot of close games here, and that's this league, man. There's just a lot of toss-up games that Syracuse is going to have to be on the better end of. Sometimes when you push a team against the wall, you see what they're made of, and that's either good or bad, and right now you're seeing the good from this Orange team. Jeff noting that Joe's having a tough stretch. Let's see. Tony saying Syracuse had an early tough non-conference schedule this year, especially for a young team. 4 new starters in the mix. It was a tough non-conference slate. Got totally destroyed inside in those games, which was a concern. You know, you go back to Oklahoma State, you go back to Penn State, Iowa, teams that just Georgetown with you're at 7. You know, it was a big concern because these were all teams that just had average to good big men, and Syracuse could not handle it. And you're saying to yourself, will they have time for Barama to come around? Will they have time for Quincy Guerrier to contribute? Can Marek handle that? And the answer to that is kind of. Today, they passed the test with flying colors. Can they continue to do that? And again, Marek, man, this kid is a pleasure to watch. Hustles, floor burns, 10 points, 11 rebounds. That's his 3rd double-double of the season. He's getting much more confident on the offensive end. They're encouraging him on the offensive end. You know, you don't just have to be the scrappy guy that gets plays and shots around the basket. Like, he can hit that jumper. He can hit that jumper on the wing. He can you don't want him to step back and hit the 3, but if he's wide open, he can hit that shot. Marek has been he is the atypical glue guy. And that's not even a compliment to his game. That kind of undercuts what he does, but it kind of fits the type of game that he plays for sure. Chris saying, great win, Notre Dame next. I'll be there. From Valparaiso, Indiana. Have fun at that game, Chris. Tom saying, can't believe he's the coach's son thing even comes up in the conversation. He's one of the most complete players in the country. Let's give that one a rest. Yeah, we really need to. I mean, people that have been critical of Buddy say, well, he didn't get recruited by anybody. He didn't get recruited by anybody because they knew that he was going to play for his dad. Like Krzyzewski even told him, and other coaches just kind of put it in Boeheim's ear. Like, look, you don't want your son, I'm going to take him because the kid can flat out shoot. And now we're seeing the round out of his complete game as well. What a story that is. Now you see why Boeheim wanted to stick around, not only to coach his son because he's a son, but to coach his son because he's a darn good player. Michael, I see your comment here, and it's a great point, and I didn't mention it yet. Only 4 turnovers on the day for Syracuse. That is darn impressive against a Virginia Tech team that likes to press, likes to harass, likes to get in your face, physical. You know, I was worried in one stretch in this game because the whistles were blowing. I thought it was a well-officiated game. You know, it's easy to critique the refs when they are blowing the whistle too much or it's a bad officiated game. I thought they kind of let him play for the most part, called the fouls that had to be called. You can nitpick a few calls as always, but only 4 turnovers in that spot. That is huge, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. My man Ben Burrows pointing out in the chat here that Buddy had an offer from Gonzaga, and we know that Jim Boeheim and Mark Few are very good friends. That would have been interesting if Mark Few came in and swept up Buddy Boeheim. And at the rate that Mike Hopkins comes in and gets Syracuse recruits, he probably would have offered Buddy a spot if Jim didn't want him as well. So I think we can officially put that nonsense to rest at this point. Barbara saying, great game. Go Orange. Gregory saying, do you think Quincy could start over Sidibe? I don't know because Quincy's not a center. That's not his position, but he's obviously going to have to spell Barama if Barama continues to struggle, and they've got to mix up the lineup a little bit. This was not a game that I think Jesse Edwards could do well in. That's why we didn't see him in the first Virginia Tech game. He's long, he's lengthy, but I don't think he could have handled the way Virginia Tech plays. But if Barama continues to struggle, not only is Quincy's going to play. He's first man off the bench no matter what, but how he spells Barama is going to be interesting, and how Jesse Edwards works his way into the conversation in games where it makes sense is going to be fascinating to watch as well. But I am happy to see Howard Washington get these minutes. Somebody brought it up in the comments a few minutes ago that we referenced that Girard starting to feel it a little bit, starting to feel it in terms of the tough minutes you have to play, the defensive attention that he's getting, still a great player, still fights his way through and is going to play minutes. But you don't have to play in 40 minutes. It's not necessary. when you have a veteran player like Howard that can come in, settle the team down, give the young kid a rest, and by the way, watch what he does. So what Syracuse is starting to see here is a young team is growing up, and you've got enough veterans that can come in and help out. Buddy is well beyond a sophomore at this point. He's playing like a junior. Elijah Hughes, enjoy it while it lasts, because that kid's going pro after this season. I don't think there's any question about that. So you've got a young team by, when you look at the roster, by definition, 4 new starters, freshman point guard, freshman coming off the bench, Quincy Guerrier, younger players by mark of sophomore. Barama Sidibe, frankly, yeah, he got some time the past couple of years, but is only fully healthy now. But they're growing up, and nothing makes a team grow up faster than winning and gaining confidence on the road. So that is all good news for Syracuse basketball at this point. Marcus noting that Sidibe needs to click. He's got to turn it up. Look, Barama he's a liability on offense. He's good when he's right by the basket. He's a great rebounder. He can be good on defense. Sometimes you peek in the box score, he'll have 3 or 4 steals, but he still has his limits. He's not a guy that's going to give you 35 solid minutes a game. Gets into foul trouble too much. Happened again today. And Barama's struggling. And that's what amazes me about how Syracuse was able to dominate in the paint today, because it was Elijah getting inside. It was Buddy getting inside. It was, a bunch of guys challenging this Virginia Tech team. And you need to do that when you have a size advantage. Virginia Tech was going to park itself on the perimeter, pass the ball well, and live and die by the 3, and they almost lived today. But Syracuse held off this Virginia Tech team 71-69, the final score in this one. I'll tell you what, I think we'll end it there for this Saturday afternoon. Oh, I like, before we do that, Fez, am I going to change my prediction again? Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'd like another redo. They made us change our midseason predictions, and I had Syracuse in that case. I downgraded them. I actually had Syracuse in our original prediction, I think 21 wins. I downgraded that to 17. They got 11 right now. I might want to change that again if they keep this up, for sure. Everybody downgraded Syracuse in our midseason predictions. Chris and Donna and Mike and my colleagues at syracuse.com, make sure you read their great work from this game as well, and our ace photographer Dennis Nett and his terrific photos as well. I think I want another redo. Why not? Why not? So that's what we'll end it for today. Thank you for coming by. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be shoveling up here in snowy Syracuse, but enjoy your weekend wherever you're watching from today. We'll be back here on Wednesday night, another revenge game and another road opportunity for the Orange as they go to Notre Dame, a team that beat Syracuse in that electric back-and-forth scoring game, an 88-87 win for the Irish. The first time, we'll see what Syracuse does in the rematch. It's a Wednesday night game in South Bend at 7 o'clock. We'll be right here on Facebook Live after that matchup. If you do miss these, by the way, we put them on YouTube. And you can find the YouTube clip on the Syracuse Orange Sports page on YouTube or in my recap on syracuse.com. Hope you can read that, by the way. Hope you can listen to the latest episode of the Syracuse Sports Podcast. Subscribe to that in iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your pods. My guy, Ben Burrows, syracuse.com, is my guest this week, and Ben takes us through his kind of inside-the-numbers approach to Syracuse hoops. I love talking hoops with Ben. You see him in the chat once in a while, pop in. We talk hoops all the time in the office, so this time we put it in podcast form for you, and I think you'll really enjoy that conversation. That's up wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and all those places. Thanks to Krause Health, as always, for presenting. Thanks to you guys for hanging out with us. We'll come back at you Wednesday night after the Orange take on the Irish.